lots of ideas about how we're going to get around in the future. Dwindling cheap oil supplies and the need to decrease emissions suggest we have to act soon. But what is the reality for the next 10 to 15 years? Is it reasonable to expect electric and hydrogen-powered vehicles to replace what we're driving now? Or that we'll soon be travelling in ships and aeroplanes powered by biofuels or nuclear energy? A report published in January by the Smith School of Enterprise and Environment in Oxford, UK, says that changes are on the way. But in the short term, it's likely we're going to achieve most of the emissions and fuel savings using the same modes of transport we're using now. Euronews met Dr. Oliver Inderwildi, the lead author of the Future of Mobility Roadmap at Wadham College in Oxford. There is speculation about what we're going to be driving in 10 years' time, 15 years' time.
I don't really think we should pick winners here. It's definitely important that we give R&D incentives for all the different opportunities there are. We have to think about alternative fuels. We have to think about electrification of road transportation. We definitely have to think about fuel cells and the hydrogen economy as well. However, I don't think it's a good idea to pick a winner out of those. We should give incentives and then let the market decide which one is the best option.
The head of the International Energy Agency and other leading figures are saying that we have to reduce and cut emissions now. But in fact, we have a car fleet that's going to last for another 15 years, 1 million vehicles.
You're raising a really good point here, because there will be a delay in impact of those vehicles. So cars that are bought today still around in 2025, and they're still on the road and emitting. That's why we should go for more fuel-efficient options. On the longer run, let's say more than a decade, we definitely have to think about alternatives as well. So we should make a smooth transition. We should use better technologies at the moment, and then incrementally adapt novel technologies like fuel cell vehicles and electric vehicles.
Let's talk about electric vehicles. In fact, at the moment, they don't represent any savings at all, because the electricity from which they derive their power is in fact produced by fossil fuel burning power stations. But they're being touted as the future.
If you're running an electric vehicle in the United Kingdom or the United States, you indeed hardly reduce emissions at all. However, let's look at France, the country you live in. More than 80% of the electricity in France is generated from nuclear sources, very low CO2 emissions from nuclear power plants. And hence, in France, electric vehicles are already a really low carbon option. However, not in the US and in the UK. So we really have to decarbonize the electricity sector as well, in parallel to promoting electric transportation.
You mentioned fuel cells as well. Do you believe this is not a short-term technology? This needs more R&D.
Absolutely, it's the same problem for as in electric vehicles. We're not quite there yet. At the moment, you still need about 2 ounces of platinum for a fuel cell car, and that the price for the platinum is already higher than the price for a complete combustion engine, a ready-made combustion engine. So I don't really think, and there are additional problems. At the moment, hydrogen is produced from natural gas, so you're essentially using a different fossil fuel. And also there are problems with hydrogen storage and distribution. So I definitely think fuel cells are something for the medium to long term.
Cheap air travel. I came here today, I think it cost me, I don't know, 30 or 40 euros. And I'm quite used to jumping on a plane all the time. It costs me next to nothing. How long can I keep doing that?
Eventually, the era of cheap oil and hence cheap kerosene will be over. And so I'm pretty sure that we see an increase in airfares over the next decade. Pretty certainly. The other problem, analog to the problem in road transportation, very long fleet lifetimes for aircrafts, up to 30 years. So technological innovation will be delayed. We finally should turn to shipping. You say in your report that it's actually really quite efficient. Absolutely, yeah. It's the most efficient way to get cargo around. More than 80% of global trade are transported using ships, and shipping is only responsible for 3% of global emissions. So that's pretty efficient, I would say. There are other problems in shipping, and that is ships usually use really heavy oils, and those heavy oils in their combustion form pollutants like sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides. and parts of those are greenhouse gases as well. However, from the CO2 emission point of view, it's the most efficient way to get cargo around.
What you're saying is that many of the technologies are really not practical, certainly not in the short term, that basically, that incrementally we will change these things, and that will have to be good enough.
Absolutely. We have to get a smooth transition to a new transportation system by using now on the short term more efficient, smaller cars, by choosing for less carbon intensive modes of transportation like public transportation and railways, etc. And at the same time we should give R&D incentives to improve novel technologies like the electric car, like green electricity production and like fuel cells.